I guess Nancy's ready. We'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting for this evening. First item of business is to approve the minutes from February 7th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, Jim, go ahead if you want to.
No, go.
After reading the reports, or the minutes, I move that we approve the minutes as they are a fair and accurate description of what happened.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Since I wasn't here, I'll just vote present.
Okay.
So we'll proceed to vote.
Weiss?
Yes.
Levy? Oops, no Levy. Scorts?
Yes.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Next item, I guess, is to nominate and vote for chairperson and vice chair. I would entertain any discussion or opinions.
I nominate Chairman Ream to continue on as chairman.
Nobody else? I guess we got a motion and a second for me to continue. Any discussion?
Do you want me to take roll on this, or do you want to do them both?
Say that again.
Do you want to say chairman and vice chairman both, and then vote, or separate?
Well, since we got a motion and a second, we'll just
Okay.
do them separate.
Scorts?
Yes.
Weiss?
Yes.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Remy?
It's not too late to say no, is it? But I'll say yes. And I'd entertain a motion for vice chair then.
I nominate Lance McDaniel as vice chair.
I will second that.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Willing to do it? Okay. Okay, let's proceed to vote.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Levy? Yes. Scorts?
Yes.
Weiss?
Yes.
Remy?
Yes. We almost put you as president. Let's see, next item is,
Do we need to swear in or no?
oh, yeah, do we need to, no, I don't think so.
I swear in.
Next item is the chance for the public to participate. Does anybody have anything they want to say that's not already on the agenda? Go ahead. Go over
Mr.
to-
Chairman, point of order for a second. Cheryl, do we have a form for swearing them in?
Do we have to,
Linda will have to give us that, and we can do it at the next meeting.
Okay.
We swear them in when they're new, first coming to the board, but we hadn't when they were getting office.
Okay.
But we can,
yeah, I don't remember swearing in last time. I mean, swearing to get on the commission, but I don't remember as an officer.
we can check. Should we check it out?
Yeah, I guess you may want to decide whether or not you want to do the changeover in office now for the rest of the meeting, or wait until the next meeting. And I don't believe we have any rule governing that. So I think it would be at the commission's discretion as to how you want to do that.
Oh, that has nothing to do with it. No. No.
I suggest we do the change at the next meeting and continue on with, as we have.
So then Rebecca needs to move back over, is that what you're saying? Okay, Patrick, we'll redo it next meeting, I guess, then. See what you caused?
Apologize to you. We're going to get to you eventually.
Back to public participation. You want, go over to the microphone and state your name, please. And there's a button in the middle to push on the base, and it should turn green. Hold it down.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dana Jensen. I live at 112 North Adams Street, and I wanted to say a few things regarding the site development plan for the new retail fast food structure at 610 East Main Street.
We will have a public hearing on that this evening, and you may want to wait then, since
Oh.
it's on the agenda.
Oh, okay. So this
Okay.
is for, okay, I misunderstood.
This is for stuff not on the agenda now. We'll let you do that later.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You will get a chance to be heard. Thank you. So I guess, Nancy, would you care to pick up on the first item on the public hearing before we open it up?
Sure. So
Unless you
there
need
was
to
no
leave.
other public.
Unless you need to leave. I mean,
Are you ready?
Is time okay for you? Can you wait till we?
oh, okay.
So the first request here is for a preliminary plat for a 3-lot subdivision proposed by Shopworks Architecture as the applicant. The site itself is, let me explain a little bit, because you don't normally see 3-lot subdivisions. Normally, those would be reviewed as a minor subdivision. In this case, it's a major or a preliminary plat for 2 reasons. Number one is that it was previously approved as a minor subdivision, and apparently you can only do that once. So because it was previously approved as a minor subdivision, all future re-subdivisions will go through the major process, or prelim and final plat. The second reason we need to review it as a preliminary plat is because there's a proposal here to dedicate future right-of-way for the extension of East Driscoll Drive. That's a tongue twister for me. Driscoll Drive. The request here, it's a 9.7 acre piece. It will end up in 3 parcels, largely because the northern parcel will be cut off from the remainder of the property by the dedication of East Driscoll Drive. So we've got 3 proposed lots. The property itself is zoned R2. The southern lot is actually the lot they were proposing to subdivide off. It has been approved previously for the Puwagon Khan Apartments. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, which will be a 42-unit affordable housing development. It was approved a year and a half ago or so, and they are getting ready to construct those units. The site is off East Empire Street. To the east is Cortez Apartments and the county courts. West is 1 single-family home and a large vacant parcel, which is zoned R2. South has a mixture of uses, including single-family and Access Health. The main issue with this subdivision is with our Cortez Master Road Plan. There was quite a bit of proposed roads on that plan that I want to just talk through a little bit. So the first major one is East Driscoll. Previously, the parcel already had an easement on there, but at the recommendation of the county engineer, we are asking that to be actually dedicated as right-of-way, and thus creating a vacant lot north of that. There were also two other roads on our master road plan that are at least worth talking about. On the west side of the property, there is a right-of-way, it's an easement right now along the west side of the property. It's not on the property, it's on the adjacent property. And I think the illustration of that is it's an easement, but because it was simply an easement and not a right-of-way, originally the apartments thought about using that as access to the property. It probably would have cleared up a few of the access points on East Empire, but because it was only an easement rather than a right-of-way, staff did not recommend use of that. Illustrating why dedicating of Driscoll from an easement to a right-of-way is a more certain access for future development. There is also a road shown on our plan on the east side of the property. There is also a small easement along there on the property. However, our engineers taking a look at that really felt like that is not a good location for a future road. And in this case, with the previously approved plan for the apartments, there's really not room for a full 60-foot road. So in that case, they're suggesting that we keep that one as an easement, perhaps for future pedestrian or some other utility use. There's also some electric utilities smack in the middle of that easement, which would prevent use of that as a future access. So I think really those are the major issues with that. I've provided for you the comments from all our agencies. The applicants have been cooperative, providing additional easements for Empire Electric, converting the existing easement to an actual right-of-way for Driscoll, and staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat.
Can you refresh my memory when we originally did this, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, that it was all one big?
It's currently all one large parcel.
Okay.
So the idea here is they'll create that first, the southernmost parcel will contain the apartments, and I've provided for you the proposed setbacks, so it will meet all density requirements and setback requirements with the new created parcel. The middle parcel will be for future development, and then also the parcel north of Driscoll will be for future development. They didn't really even ask for 3 parcels. They asked for 2. But once we asked for dedication of right-of-way, they had to convert that to a request for 3 parcels.
Okay, thank you. We'll open the public hearing on this item. Anyone care to speak for or against? Anybody have any questions for? Go ahead.
I'd like to ask the people from Pinion Project if they wouldn't mind answering a few questions. Probably at the mic would be best. But is this is part of your total, all 3 lots are yours, and the housing will be yours to maintain and provide, and the housing, is that rental or is that for sale? Not that.
Oh, yeah, it's in the middle. Got a whole,
Good evening.
yes, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Darcy McClure. I'm with Blue Line Development. We are partnering with The Pinion Project on this development, yes. The Pinion Project owns all 9 acres, and we are building a 42-unit affordable housing apartment complex on the southernmost part of that. Our original intent was to subdivide that southernmost parcel and keep the rest of the property available for the Pinion Project for future development. And then, as Nancy indicated, the city came back and said, hey, with Driscoll, we need to have 3 parcels. We're amenable to that. And yes, the intent is to build apartments that will be rented to people in the community.
On the new proposal?
On the southernmost
Okay,
2.7 or so
All right,
acres.
and that's, so there are 2 separate, I mean, the 42-unit thing starts and breaks ground in April or something like that?
Correct.
And this parcel will have how many?
42 apartments.
Okay, as well, so there'll be 87 total?
No, I'm sorry. The southernmost parcel will have 42 apartments.
Right.
We have no current plans for the 2 additional parcels that will be created.
Okay, I'm confused, I apologize, thank you.
I assume the city council had already approved the original, our recommendation from a couple of years ago or whatever, is that?
Yes, we
Okay.
have approvals for the development.
Okay. And you have no plans, but it could be sold, somebody maybe wanted to put a duplex in or something? Is that?
Right, it could be sold. The Pinion Project and Blue Line have no current plans. We would have to see what the need is in the community in future years and see what works with planning and so forth. But, we bought Pinion Project bought the 9 acres, and we only need a little less than 3 for the current development, and that's really what prompted us to come to the city and ask for the subdivision.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone to speak for or against? We'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, you got any questions for anyone? I guess I'd entertain a motion then.
Can I make the motion? Oops, sorry. This is a new microphone for me. I'd like to make a motion to recommend that council approve the preliminary plat for the Pinion Project subdivision on the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of the Chisholm Group minor subdivision, southwest quarter, southeast quarter, section 23, Township 36 North. Do I need to read the rest of the legal section and range, blah, 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 in the residential multifamily R2 zone as submitted by Shopworks Architecture LLC through P&Z Resolutions Number 2, Series 2023 with the following conditions. And that would just be about CDOT and utility easements.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Scorts,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Remy.
What'd you say? Oh, okay. Yes. And you're supposed to break ground in April, you said? Hopefully it'll be a little drier by then, maybe. Next item is the hearing on the application for a site plan for the retail fast food. Nancy, would you care to enlighten us on this one, please?
This is a request from LBC Investments LLC for a site plan to construct a new 2,365 square foot fast food restaurant with drive-through. It will be located on the 1.6 acre parcel. We've been calling it 610 East Main Street. Just to make note, this would be readdressed. 610 East Main Street is the existing building to the north of the property. Oddly enough, the parcel itself is simply a parking lot at this time. I think you can see up on the screen there that the parcel itself is simply this, the parking lot, with the commercial building on a separate parcel. They have indicated that they will come back through for a subdivision request in the near future, which may be applicable to some of the neighbor concerns regarding access. But let me go through the rest of this. The property is zoned commercial highway, for which restaurants, fast food are a permitted use. The property is bounded on the west by City Market, commercially zoned. They do somewhat share access. There are also commercial properties to the west and north. There is, and I think this you'll hear soon, there are some single-family homes to the north on the other side of the commercial building on North Adams Street. So I just want to make sure we're all oriented. Of course, the purpose of the site plan is to ensure that it complies with all regulations. The minimum lot size in the commercial zone is 3,000 square feet. They will likely propose, after subdivision, a 30,000 square foot parcel. I provided for you all the setbacks as required. They will significantly exceed all those requirements. Maximum lot coverage in the C-zone is 50%, and their proposal will put them at 8%. Maximum height's 50 feet, they're proposing 18. They are proposing 2 extra parking spaces, the requirements for 24, they're proposing 26. And then the requirement for landscaping of the site is 10% in the C-zone, or just under 3,000 square feet. They're proposing approximately double that at 6,400 square feet, or 21.6% of the site. So I guess in summary, they are meeting all requirements and standards as set forth in the code. As far as comments received, I just want to go over this a little bit because this was another case where we had to work with the applicant for quite some time to address, in this case, CDOT's comments. And in this case, as you'll see, there's an existing 2 access points on the property. They are currently full movement access points. CDOT had concerns with that and have asked them to, at first they asked them to combine the accesses into one. They also wanted them to combine with the property to the east. The property to the east was not interested in removing their point of access and sharing an access with this parcel. So instead, they've worked with CDOT, and what will happen is that several of the existing access points will be limited to right in, right out. So they won't be full movement access. The one adjacent to CDOT will be limited to just turning in, right turns in and right turns out. You wouldn't be able to cross, take a left and head east on Main, or if you were heading east on Main, you would not be able to take a left turn into the property. The easternmost access will, though, however, remain full movement. So this will be accomplished with signage and arrows, but that was after significant negotiations with CDOT. There weren't really any other significant comments. There are some easement concerns regarding utilities, et cetera. When they come back in for a subdivision, of course, at that point is probably the appropriate time to get dedications of easements from the property. So at this point, staff finds that the proposed use is consistent with the zoning and is designed to meet all of our requirements. We are recommending approval. We have 3 conditions on there. They're pretty standard on meeting all requirements, that they provide engineered drawings prior to construction, and that the landscaping improvements either be installed prior to issuance of a CO, or provide a financial guarantee should that the use be finished at a time when they could not complete landscaping, such as in the winter time. I think that's it, unless you have any questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple, so well, go ahead.
I just have one and it concerns North Adams Street. So, does Adams Street go all the way through to Main Street, or is that private property to the east of City Market? You have I don't know if that's a boundary line there, sort of red looking from here to the east of City Market. Is that a property line? What is that?
It is a property line. There's no right-of-way there now.
So that's all private property to the east of City Market?
Yes.
So Adams Street does not continue on to Main, correct?
Well, physically, I understand it does.
Right, but the city doesn't own the right-of-way for Adams Street to go all the way to Main,
Right.
correct? Okay, and the reason I ask that is because in the past, as we all know, there is a fence across that area which stopped traffic from going through, and now the fence is gone and we all use it. So that fence could potentially go back up at the request of the property owner, or is it the city, or how does that work if we know it all, Nancy? I think that'll help alleviate some questions here tonight.
Well, I think it would be at the property owner's discretion, but I really don't know the history of that.
I have some institutional memory about why the fence got removed. It was because DaVita Dialysis moved in there, and they requested it to be removed so that they could also have access for their patients and for their supply trucks. And Lance, I think you were on P&Z then, too.
I remember, but the only thing I remember about DaVita was the dock that goes over the alleyway of the residence on.
Oh, yeah, that was, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, speak into them.
To dovetail what Jim is saying, if the city doesn't claim from the property line, the north property line of Front Row there, doesn't claim that as a street north, then I don't see why the gate shouldn't be closed, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, to me, there's a whole lot of problems in that area, and I don't want to go on a diatribe, but when we approve these, and I understand economics and the reason for economic development, but when we improve development sites like this, like these have been done with City Market and Front Row, that neighborhood north is basically been screwed from the beginning with the dock extending into their alleyway, with people running out of that parking lot, not stopping at that where the gate used to be, and with people in City Market running out of their way without stopping. That poor neighborhood is being abused, and then when you add on that the fact that it's emptying out into a school zone, that's a school zone from regularly 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., to me, that's a recipe for disaster. Because you're exiting this street, Adams Street, at a time when it's under school zone regulations, but there's no warning coming out of Adams Street that you're entering the school zone. So I see several problems with allowing the traffic to continue up on Adams, and I think that's the point that Jim was trying to make as well. I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but I agree with what Jim has said. Thank you.
Can you show us on there on the back of the dialysis building there, where that, dock, where that loading dock is? Yeah, it's right about
Yeah,
there.
I think it's right.
Right about there, okay, that's where I was sort of picturing it.
The reason I brought up that they will be asking for a subdivision is, as you can see, the lots in here are odd. So the property that the dialysis center is on has this weird kind of panhandle. And then over into here, the parking lot's not on the property at all. My thought is that when they come in to re-subdivide, they're likely to move this line so that we have more reasonable, the parking is with the building, and perhaps in a more reasonable configuration than, in this case, perhaps they only own this as parking. At that time, the easements and access would certainly be on the table for comments, and perhaps we could talk to them about gating off or closing that.
And Nancy, I'm sorry, Robert.
No, go
I know
ahead.
you had questions, but
No, go ahead.
if CDOT's negotiation with this plan requires them to enter Main Street and exit at Main Street with right turns only, then that addition or that freestanding building out there in front still is having traffic that's somehow has to wind up going eastbound or coming from the west. I mean, or if you're coming from the west, how do you get into the property? And I just see potential traffic problems on Main with that, as well as the destruction of, or the continued destruction of a neighborhood.
Yeah, let me clarify. CDOT's only asking that one of the access points be limited to right in, right out, and the other one can still stay as full access movement.
Getting back to my original point, which Lance has talked on, North Adams, and if you could go to the screen and show us where that North Adams ends. So since the private property owner put up a fence there initially, on the city side of that, the city could potentially close off North Adams there without any coordination with the private property owner, correct? The city could close off North Adams Street to alleviate the issues
Yeah,
that people
good
have.
point, that just a little bit north of the property line. we
Right,
could
so
do that.
there's another solution that the city could perhaps close that off. Not saying they will, but potential solution.
So, yeah, I guess you put a dead ends on there. Yeah. But, so go down and to the right, farther of the whole parking lot system. No, just your arrow. Like where front row seat used to be. Is that a separate little, right there? Is that a separate little lot? No, go more to the right. Go to the east. There you go, east, yeah, right in there. Is that a separate lot?
No, it's part of the
You have to speak into the mic, I can't quite hear you.
Can you see the blue outline
Okay,
is the parcel? It's weird.
whoa, that's the one that goes with the dialysis building?
Right.
Yeah, based on that, dialysis doesn't have any parking in front.
Right.
How'd that ever get? That was before our time, I guess.
And I'm thinking that when they create the smaller parcel out front for this new use, what would make most sense is to do a boundary adjustment and clean up this kind of mess right here.
And so who would do that? The people proposing this?
Currently, the parcel is all, it's owned by this Cortez Maine LLC. They own both parcels. But they
I'm
have-
sorry, did you say they own the dialysis building as well?
They own the dialysis building plus the parking lot where this new use is proposed. The new applicant has indicated that a subdivision will be proposed. They've shown it on the site plan where they think the lot line will be. They're oddly showing also that panhandle will be cut off as a separate parcel, but I think we're going to talk to them about whether or not that makes sense. And if they do not want to adjust the parcel lines to include the building and parking, we're going to have to require easements, obviously, so that they have parking, that the parking is tied to the building use. And that everybody has full access to Main. I have not seen the subdivision proposal yet, other than what they provided on the site plan.
And then go back to the highway there, the two ingress egresses. You're saying that CDOT, at that one right in there, would let you, if you were eastbound, you could make a left turn into there,
Yes,
but not on the other one?
not on this one. CDOT's ultimate plan is to have this be really the only access for for both parcels, all three parcels. They would like to see it combined with this access also enclosed.
And
in
that
the
parcel
future.
that you're on now did not want to change, is that right?
Right.
So what is their thinking, if you can speculate, why they would let you make a left-hand turn in one place and not the other?
Sorry, I got this.
Why would CDOT only want one place to be a left-hand turn and not the other also?
Generally, left-hand turns are the most dangerous turns, the
Yeah.
most likely to create traffic conflicts. So they're trying to, they have a full plan for the corridor that would limit the amount of accesses off and on the highway. And in that plan, this one here is the one that they would see as a full movement turning, and then hopefully serving all of these properties here, with this one just limited down. They'd really like to see this one go away, but at this point, they're limiting it to just right turns. Because
And
right
Chair-
turns are safer.
And Chairman, I would assume because the entrance to the east is further away from the stoplight, I've often found that traffic backs up to that first entrance, and also then the entrance to the east is further away from the city market entrance, so then you diversify your crossing Main Street. It's just further away from the stoplight, personally, just my thought why that would be.
Nancy, can I ask you, you mentioned two lots. I'm sorry, were you? You're mentioning two lots, and I only see one. Can you point, that small one behind West Slope Liquors is the second lot? Is that what's considered the second lot?
So right now, there's, the parking lot is one lot. The second lot contains the building.
Okay.
And this, yeah,
Put that blue line back up there again, because I think his question's the same as mine.
oops, it's hard to get it.
That, oh, had it.
Try that.
That's the second lot. Now,
Okay, okay.
that looks like a pretty weird lot.
And you were saying that the owners of the property will be coming back with a site plan for further development?
With a subdivision.
Subdivision.
To divide, yes.
Okay, so when you mentioned
you could
moving
see
property
it-
lines, I'm assuming that's within their present property, not condemning property north of the building, right?
Wait, I
Okay.
don't
I
understand
just
that question.
wanted to make that clear.
Ask it again.
I'm sorry, ask it again? So you mentioned moving the lot sizes or changing the lot around with the development. That doesn't mean, I'm assuming that doesn't mean that they will be allowed to take land that's not theirs. I mean, they won't be able to, okay, so everything will be,
absolutely not.
everything that they do in the second coming,
Well, yes, the second
will,
coming back.
will be involved on that lot, okay?
Right,
That's,
and what what they've shown on the site plan is a new lot line drawn right across here. It's definitely going to have some complications, is what I'm saying, because we need to make sure we've got access easements to get across the new lot, that we might want to look at reconfiguring this awkward lot here so that they, I think the cleanest thing would be to put the new line, get rid of this line, and move it like this. So all of that is one parcel.
Nancy, let me reiterate, both of these properties are owned by the same entity, correct?
Correct.
All of Front Row Seat and DaVita and the parking lot are owned by the same people, so they aren't dealing with anybody else besides themselves.
Correct.
And just a reminder, even though we're not talking about subdivision right now, we wouldn't be able to recommend approval of a subdivision that creates a in-holding parcel that's isolated without any access. That would be something we couldn't do.
Right.
So access will be addressed if anything gets approved to subdivide it.
Yes.
And in order to get to the dialysis, if they do the subdivision, they would have to have an easement to drive through their property to get to the dialysis.
Correct.
Okay, we'll open this up for public comment at this point, if you'd like to go. Yeah, I still got some.
Hello again. I'm Dana Jensen. I live at 112 North Adams Street, and I have some concerns, of course, about the proposal. I purchased my home in 2002, and until a few years ago, that gate was in place. I'm not sure what the circumstances were, how the gate was removed. It was just gone one day. When I contacted the city about it, I was told that it was removed by the property owner because, the city didn't do it. So I have had backing out of my driveway since that gate, that fence got removed. I've had an accident with a lady that was peeling out of the City Market exit there. She was going so fast and I was backing up and we had a collision. There's no stop sign there for the people exiting City Market. There's no stop sign at the Adams Street, where the gate was. And now that that's open, people are just tearing through there because it's a straight shot, Montezuma to Main Street. And I'm afraid that with, a drive-through and fast food place going in there, it's just going to increase the traffic. There's also the added, another thing to consider is that the huge semis for City Market use Adams Street for backing into their loading docks. And they also use the entire street to back up and turn around to go west back through City Market after they've unloaded their trailer. They'll pull out down Adams Street and then back up until they can, turn back toward the west through City Market's parking lot to leave. They don't even really use that, that pass-through without the gate to come in. They still come in from Harrison Street. Let's see. The other issue, of course, is the fact that the street, the end of Adams Street where it intersects with Montezuma, does empty into the school zone, and there is no signage to indicate that you're turning into a school zone, whether you go left or right, because the flashing light is located at Harrison and Park. Not that anyone really pays attention to it anyway. Most people speed through there. And I guess what I'm asking for is I would like for as much mitigation as possible with people exiting the fast food place and only being able to make right-hand turns. I can see, anybody that wants to go east is going to use that Adams Street, gate to go east on Montezuma, since they can't go east on Main anymore. And yeah, I'd just like to ask for as much mitigation as possible, whether it be stop signs for people exiting City Market, a stop sign if the gate isn't put up, and then I don't know what to do about, the big giant trucks impeding traffic on the street and using the entire street to back up. And, there's probably anywhere between 7 or 8 or 9 trucks a day that come in from 5 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. And I think, yeah, just would like, the City Market expansion occurred before I bought my property, and there was no mitigation there when they did that expansion of their loading dock. So I just like to make sure that there is some mitigation for the property owners on my street there for any new development. Thank you.
Hold on, I have some questions unless these guys also have questions. Anybody have a question? Describe again how the delivery trucks enter and back up.
The semis come in to City Market on Harrison Street. They use I guess it's probably the second entrance to the north of City Market, come behind the building straight across, then they pull out onto Adams Street in front of my house. My house is the house in the middle, the third one, and then they use the entire street to maneuver their trailers into those loading docks. And once the trailers have been emptied or, emptied, I guess, by the store employees, they typically pick up the other trailer that's sitting there empty, and then they'll pull back out onto Adams Street, almost to the, not quite to the stop sign, but pretty close, because I don't know how long they are, but they're really, it's a semi. And then they back up down Adams Street all the way to the gate, and then they turn to the west to cut through City Market's lot to leave and go back out through Harrison.
Probably because if they tried to exit to the north, they'd run into the school zone, and it's not big enough for them to, the street's not wide enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Other than the accident, Dana, have you had any other property destroyed? I mean, have the trucks hit mailboxes or rocks or boulders or stuff like that?
Yeah, we've had issues in the past that I have addressed with City Market and then Brisk Brisk Transportation is their contractor, where they have used my driveway for kind of to get a good angle to back in to those loading bays. Or I actually even had a truck that drove right up on my lawn, tore branches out of the tree in my front yard. We placed boulders on our property to try to keep the trucks from driving onto our property. And one time a truck drove up and the bumper of his truck hooked the giant boulder and pulled it out into the street with his truck. City Market said, you know, they're contractors, they're not employees, they couldn't do anything. I talked to the guy at Brisk about it, and he basically said, you know, all of our drivers are contractors. You know, we have special instructions on the work orders or whatever to tell them, you know, to avoid private property. But, you know, a lot of times in the winter with the angle of that, the way that hill is for them to back up, they can't, the ice makes the tires slip and they can't get any traction, and they don't want to take the time to chain up. So they'll just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to try to get an angle, and then they end up in my front yard or using my driveway.
I have one more question. Does the dock that protrudes from DeVita, how often is that truck hauling that hazardous waste away? Is it once a week, once a month?
For DeVita, it comes once a week, and it typically comes early in the morning.
And it backs down the alleyway?
Backs down the alleyway with a backup alarm blaring at 6 in the morning.
Thank you, Dina.
It's not the same size as a semi, is it?
No, it's kind of like a box truck.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyone else to speak for or against?
Can you hear me? My name is Douglas Mize with Sauter Miller & Associates. I'm the civil engineer on the project. I figured I'd make myself available to any of your additional comments, but I'd like to start out with kind of the CDOT discussion you all were having. So CDOT was leading the discussion. However, the document regulating the access terms is a City of Cortez and CDOT access control plan, signed and agreed plan that we're following. And basically that plan depicts that sometime in the future there will be raised medians put in on that continuous left turn lane on Main. And so whenever I did the traffic impact analysis, I had to take into account how the volumes would be impacted with that reduced turning movements. Until those get built, we'll use signing and striping to show the customers which way they can and cannot go, and then will be fully, I guess, implemented whenever CDOT and City of Cortez actually fully implements their access control plan with those raised medians. So that's the reason for reduction in turning movements, is according to your guys' plan in joint with CDOT. In addition, for the access to the rear existing building through the proposed development, there is existing 30-foot wide easements from those driveways all the way to the back, which will be maintained through the new plat process.
I noticed on our drawings on the site plan, they're marked as a utility easement, so they're not necessarily an access easement?
So we have utility easements and access easements on here. The utility easements are on the utility plan in the civil set.
Describe again, oh, I'm sorry. Is he, okay.
Oh, I do see it now. It doesn't say existing, though.
Okay.
And I haven't looked, just my amateur armchair traffic engineering, which is nothing. It seems like it's odd to me that the CDOT would want to temporarily even allow and say that they want the main access to be right by the liquor store, main access with a big old fence blocking visibility and allowing both left and right out of both of those drive points right next to each other are going to create conflicts. So I just am commenting on the issue that I see with their proposal, that on their comments that they've addressed to your application, like that seems like a much worse location to me.
Yeah, the joint access control plan's goal at full build out is that the liquor store to the east and the entire development that we're talking about with dialysis center behind all use a singular point of access. And then that's where the negotiation came into maintaining a second access right in, right out only.
Okay, I understand. I mean, it does make sense if there's a whole, if there's a whole access control plan for, honestly, like all three properties, because then you can start addressing the issues that are already existing from City Market, and then through the subdivision process, and then you're not, if they're going to hem you into saying, no, you can only do this right here next to Liquid Assets, and Liquid Assets doesn't want to play, that doesn't solve problems that are already in existence. But there's potential to address some of these access issues more comprehensively. If I'm prematurely talking here, I realize that, but I'm just kind of complaining about the situation. But there could be opportunity to make it better.
Yeah, and so I think that'll come into play when the actual construction plans come to fruition on putting those raised medians in, because if built per your guys' ACP, it will literally close off that driveway to the liquor store to the east. So before the construction plans are approved by you and CDOT, it would have to be addressed. They would either have to put in an additional left turn into it or come to the table and say this will be the shared access as per the access control plan.
How large is this building that's supposed to be there? I couldn't quite pick it up.
2,365 square feet. The proposed site is a little over 30,000 square feet.
So as a restaurant, it says, is it all drive-through, or is there going to be inside seating too?
There will be inside seating as well.
I have a question about the aspect of the building. We have rendering 1 and rendering 2. I'm just curious, which rendering will be facing Main Street? Will Main Street just have the butt end of the building, or will the actual front end of the building be facing Main Street? Rendering 1 or rendering 2?
Rendering 1 will be facing Main Street. All of the parking is to the east and west and north of the building, and the drive-through goes on the south side.
Okay, so just let me clarify, rendering 1 will be facing Main Street.
Actually, I misspoke. The rendering facing Main Street is not shown. You're
Well-
seeing an isometric view from one side's parking spaces to another side's parking spaces. So the back side of rendering 1, which you can't see, is what would be facing Main Street.
Okay, so rendering 1, what we're looking at, that's facing what direction?
Caddy corner to Main Street. So if you're looking at the building, you're seeing this parking space, and behind the building would be Main
That
Street.
doesn't make sense.
There's no parking. Yes.
There's no parking spaces on the rendering. Oh, I see, oh, in the corner there. All right, so where it says drive-through, that little sign that says drive-through there? On rendering 1?
Yeah, they'd have to go around like this to get it.
And they have it on the overhead right now as well.
Okay.
Okay, so where it says drive-through, that sign is facing north, south, east, or west?
That sign is going to be on the northwest corner of our site. So if you reference it to the site plan, it's on the northwest corner. So if you're looking at the building from that sign, you would see Main Street in the background. So you're seeing the north and west sides of the building in rendering 1.
Okay. Then in rendering 2, which shows a light pole in the corner there, that side with those windows and a door on rendering 2, is that facing north, south, east, or west?
So on rendering 2, to the left side of the page, that's the drive-through canopy, which would be located on the east side of the building.
Thanks, I might come back to you, but thanks.
So the drive-through will be both on the east and the west side?
Yes, so for the drive-through, you will enter on the west side, move to the south end of the parcel, turn east, and then turn back north and exit out on the east side, heading
And
north.
this lot, or this plot where you're planning to build, as we see it here, the driveways enter to, or exit to the north.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So if I'm going to go through the drive-through, how do I get there? Because Main Street's on the bottom.
Yes, so you enter from Main Street, travel north, and then, so if you're coming in from the east access, which is the full movement,
That looks more like the west access.
the east axis, you would come into the north, turn west, enter into it, and then you can exit out the east, turning right. Or exit out the west access, headed west.
So the drive-through lane will be between the building and Main Street, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You don't have then a rendering of the side of the building that will be facing Main Street then, do you, in these renderings? The south side of the building?
I do not believe so, sir.
Do you have one there yourself that you can show us, or no?
No,
One
sir.
doesn't exist? Thank you. Pardon me again, but I want to be clear. So I guess the thing that's confusing me, these are two different renderings? This is not the same building, It might either be rendering 1 or it might either be rendering 2, is that correct?
Same building, different isometric views.
Is the elevation on A201 main entry, is that what we would see from Main Street?
So on A202, the bottom elevation, rear service wood EIFS would be the side facing Main Street.
Oh, whoa. So the back of the building is facing our main arterial commercial corridor.
Yes, the main entrance is facing north.
I just would like to say how much I hate our land use code for not requiring the primary entrance of commercial buildings to face the main thoroughfare access point, because this is allowed in our land use code, and to me, it's unacceptable. But it's totally allowed, so I wouldn't be able to vote no because it's stupid, because our land use code is stupid. Okay, I'm done.
And I have a similar misgiving because it would be great if we could see what the south side of this building was like, what we'll be looking at from Main Street, which we don't have, correct?
No, he just pointed that out. Rear service wood APHIS, whatever, on A202 at the bottom is what you're gonna see from Main Street.
Right, but we don't
The
have.
the back of the building.
But we do not have a rendering in color.
No, we don't have a
That's
pretty
what I'm
color
asking.
doodle of it, but
Right.
that, you can imagine what it's gonna look like still.
Okay, so I have a problem then approving this until we see what the south side is going to look like. The same concern that others of us have, we may just be facing a brick wall and it may be butt ugly. So I have a concern approving this tonight until we see a rendering of what the south side of the building that'll be facing Main Street will look like with the drive-through lane.
I happen to agree with Jim, but I need to ask a question. As far as deliveries to this mysterious restaurant, cafe, coffee house, whatever it is, how are the delivery trucks supposed to deliver?
They'll deliver to the north of the building and be hand trucked into the store.
So they'll be hand trucking it from the north side of the building into the, at that point, basically front door?
Well, they have a side door as well, or they can go around to the back.
And from the side doors, they would have to cross the lane, the drive-through lanes to get to the building?
They could come from through the drive-through lane, yes.
And, okay, I'll just leave it at that.
So, yeah, I question the delivery too, coming in there. It's right in the flow of traffic of the drive-through. I mean, right? Yeah.
The two lots share, when the plat is completed, the two lots will have a shared access agreement. And so the delivery truck doesn't have to be fully stationed within the driveway lane. It's not gonna sit in the middle of the drive-through intended lane and block all the traffic as people are trying to enter the store.
No, but as I drive through there and out the north entrance, I'm gonna have to take a left turn and go down then to get out of Main Street, to take a right only. I'm not gonna be able to flip around real quick and where there's that other. Yeah, that one right there. How wide's that supposed to be? Big, is it wide enough for traffic to come and go?
Over 26 feet wide, so that's easy 2 lanes.
Any more questions for him? All right, thank you. Anyone else to speak for or against during the public hearing? All right, I'll close the public hearing, and any comments?
No comments?
I have a question for staff. Because the application, even as it is, meets the criteria of our land use code.
Is that a question?
Yeah, like the application is complete, even though we don't get to see a pretty version of the main perspective. It still meets the criteria of our code for approval based on the comments that we've received in the review from staff.
Yes, it does meet the criteria, and yes, and you're absolutely correct. We have no design criteria about fronts of buildings or architectural detailing. We just don't have it.
So like the HVAC could be mounted and face Main Street. It's the way our code is, because it's the only one we have. Okay, I'll stop proselytizing. But I just wanted to make sure I was hearing that correctly.
Yes.
I guess I have another question for you, sir. Trying to read through all my papers here, but can you describe to us the landscaping that is being planned to put in there? Yeah, I can't find it.
So we've included sheet LP1 and LP2. You're probably more interested in LP1, which has an overhead graphical display of what all the vegetation looks like.
And can you describe the vegetation? I'm worried about how long it's going to take to grow up to be a hindrance to drivers getting in and out and just blocking vision of things.
So all of the trees placed here, sir, will go in as trees and have a growth pattern that reaches maturity that meets the site triangle requirements for access onto Main Street. So at full maturity, these trees should not provide, and shrubs should not provide additional visual hindrance for seeing oncoming traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could add, even though we don't have specific design standards that would govern this project, and again, it's a preliminary site plan, so you will have to view it one more time, correct? We don't do a final? Okay, well, that, yeah, when you get the building permit. But under the purpose of the site plan, it does contain some language that mentions that the purpose of a site plan review process is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, to promote balanced growth, to ensure adequate provision of public services and facilities, and to guide the character of development of the city. And I think the last part of that sentence, guiding the character of development, is a reference that would give you some discretion in determining whether a building fits the character of the city and the development of the city. So you're not completely without any authority or code guidance when you review these items. But it is, it's one of the factors in the code that you may want to look at at some point. And certainly, as we update our land use code that we're in the process of starting now, that will certainly be one of the issues that is considered.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Nancy? Thanks, you answered my question. Anybody have any questions for Nancy?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. So my office is right off of Main Street, and every morning Pippo's unloads their stuff there. And it's inconvenient, but it's where we live. There's not a lot of parking here. We're painfully growing as a tiny city, and I understand your concerns about mitigation, and I agree with them, but I don't think that should impede growth. I think we should follow the staff's recommendation, but also obviously stay in diligent communication with the developers, but not be the red pen that stops the development from happening. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Nancy, is there a reason why they didn't come with a subdivision plan so we could see where the lot lines, I mean, it says it up there, but there's no, I mean, I guess I'd like to see the whole picture, but is there a reason why they?
I asked that question, and they said it was coming. I haven't seen it yet. The reason I backed off is because you can put more than one commercial building on a property. So they don't really have to subdivide ever.
I think I'd agree with the point I think that Robert was trying to make is, to me, this seems a little premature since we're not in looking at the entire site plan for the entire subdivision that's coming down the pike. To me, approving this right now without seeing what's coming, like I said, it just seems premature to me. I think I just think that it would be better if we saw both plans at the same time, in my opinion.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I know we just make a recommendation to city council, and they're the ones that have to do the final approval, but yeah, I'd like to see the whole big picture here. This is, that's my, and I guess, if there's any other discussion or whatever?
Well, just along those lines, it gets back into the land use code and the way it's written for approval process. Like, the community I worked in at one point, when somebody was gonna propose a minor subdivision along with a site plan, we would go through the preliminary plat approval process and the site plan approval process at the same time, but our land use code is not set up to do that. So they can absolutely do a site plan review and approval process, and it doesn't matter about whether or not they, because this in and of itself, the subdivision doesn't have to happen in order for them to be able to do what they want to do. They already have the mass and scale to do those things. So it does make it like not a full picture, and that is just something that we could look at when we start looking at drafts of a new land use code in the future. That would be an issue if you want to address that, because there are ways you can do it. And then I wanted to ask Patrick a question. Would it be appropriate to add a condition if or start adding conditions for approval based on the last purpose that you had mentioned that we have for a site plan review, for, you know, the overall fit with the community, allowing us to maybe add some design, maybe not official design criteria, but make requests regarding maybe some access or the signage or the way that the building is designed so that the butt doesn't face the main entrance. You know what I mean?
Well, and of course, at the building permit stage, they have to produce all the detailed elevations and renderings that would show all of the landscaping and all of that, and that's required. So that, I guess, is your question?
My question would be, could we put criteria or could we add conditions for recommendation that would help address some of the concerns today that aren't criteria for approval, but they would be requests from the applicant at this point, or is that something?
Yeah, I think you would probably be overstepping your bounds a little bit to essentially recommend specific criteria that aren't included in the
List of criteria.
the code.
Yeah, okay.
You could make kind of generic statements that you believe the building profiles should present a aesthetically pleasing perspective to the traveling public on Main Street or something like that. But to actually require, you know, a certain number of windows facing Main or that, I believe that would be beyond what your authority is based on what the code provides.
Thank you.
But Patrick, that other item that you read, it kind of fit in with what she was originally asking as far as giving grounds to not like it, so to speak, right? That,
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to go back up to the language.
oh, to guide the character of the city, that
Yeah,
part?
so,
Yeah.
you know, one of the purposes is to guide the character of development of the city. And, you know, that's somewhat of a broad statement, and so I think if you start to extrapolate specific recommendations based on that broad statement, that's probably beyond your authority, but I think you can certainly make statements that you think the front profile of the building should present an aesthetically pleasing view consistent with the character of Main Street, which I'm not sure.
And not to confuse, but I did want to get, so you guys understand, depending on what's proposed with the subdivision, it's possible it'll be a minor subdivision that would go straight to city council and you wouldn't see it.
So Nancy, are we okay with saying we want to see the big picture of things before we do anything?
I guess I feel like you have everything already. I don't know what additional, it's okay to continue and ask for more information. I don't understand what more they would need to provide.
Let me try and clarify that,
Maybe
because
an aesthetically pleasing south elevation.
let me try and clarify that, because I'm ready to make a motion. The motion I'm going to make is that we table this application so that the applicant can provide information with a rendering showing the south elevation of the building, so then we can see what's proposed to
Well,
face
they-
Main Street.
Jim, just to clarify, that's it right there.
Not a 3D. No, that's just a flat sketch.
Right.
So I want to see a 3D picture is what I want to see, so we can tell what's facing Main Street. And that's why I'm going to propose that we table this until next meeting, so the applicant can provide the
Just to
south
clarify,
elevation.
if you table an application, then they have to start over from scratch. They have to renotice it, they have to republicize it. If you continue it to a date certain, then you don't have to renotice, no new publication and all that.
Thank you, then I would make a motion to continue it to our next meeting to do that, so.
Which is April.
That's what I'm looking at, folks, so we can see what it looks like facing Main Street, which we can't right now.
Jim, would you be willing to amend that motion to?
Well, I don't, he said he hasn't made a motion yet.
Oh, I thought he did.
Talked about he would.
Okay, I'm just, I agree somewhat with Jim, but I think the date that should be attached to the end of it should be the presentation of the entire site plan. I mean, I think they should be tied together. No, the site plan for the entire complex, the subdivision.
But the thing is, that's not before us, and if they never submit a subdivision, they don't have to, correct?
That's correct.
Right, so that's not part of this. We can't tie them together for something that doesn't exist, because they may never submit a subdivision, and they don't have to.
And I would caution you, the planners have correctly stated that the code doesn't require that they provide the 3D renderings. So, you know, you're essentially basing it on the goodwill of the applicant to provide that additional information. If they decline to do that, then I don't think you can force them to do it.
However, I cannot guide the character of the city without seeing a south rendering. And I would like to guide the character of the city in a way that I have to see the rendering before I can do that.
If I might make a recommendation that perhaps the commission take a 5-minute break while the planner consults with the applicant, and it may clarify some of your concerns.
You want us to call a 5-minute recess? Is that what you're
I
saying?
think that would help, yes.
We need a motion to do that?
Yes.
I move that we go into 5-minute recess to allow the planners to work with the applicant on the rendering.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Yeah.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? We'll proceed to vote.
Levy? Yeah. Scorts?
Yes?
McDaniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Weiss?
Yes.
Remy?
Yes, that was for 5 minutes, was it? Show me that again. Oh.
I was gonna stand.
I'm going to the bathroom.
What's next? We got one more? Or no? What's that? Isn't that it? Yeah. It's like, they met. Tried to. Yeah. It's kind of screwed. I guess I recognize Stan. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but they don't have to do it. Yeah, I understand that now. It just, to me, it seems.
I'm so glad I'm back. Whoops.
Oh, yeah, okay. We will call a meeting back into order. And we've got some questions if you would like to address us to see what else you'd be. And Rebecca, I'll let you ask the question.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Clayton King. I'm working with Douglas on this project. I'm the developer on it. And we don't have an issue if we need to supply a colored rendering prior to council approval. Happy to do that. That's the only comment I have.
Rebecca, you got any other questions, or? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? I guess I would entertain a motion then.
Before a motion, I'd like to drop in on the further discussion part.
Okay.
I know the land use code doesn't specifically state that when approval for a project implies that the applicant should be a good neighbor. And I believe in my heart that that's what distinguishes us from the county's land use code, is that, at least for me, that's how I interpret the land use code, is that we approve or disapprove something, but the implication is that that business or that development or that whatever is happening, that doesn't take the responsibility of them away from being good neighbors. And I know this is a separate case from, you know, the Front Row and City Market. I know it's separate, but it's really tied in to that whole concept of a neighborhood that's 73 years old, give or take, that's been there longer than Front Row, which used to be Safeway, and City Market, which is, there used to be housing on that property. It just seems to me that by using that implication, that if we approve it, that we're implying or we're assuming these developers are going to be good neighbors. And I'm not sure that this neighborhood is really ready to trust that. The fact that, because they've been surrounded by bad neighbors. If you walk the property line behind Front Row, it's a short, maybe 2 feet wide between the rear of the building and the property line fence, and it's full of trash. You look at the gate that is hanging, I mean, it's not even an attractive gate, and it's affecting our neighborhoods. And these people, these 4 property owners that are left on Adams Street, are now going to lose, I can almost guarantee, lose property value. They've already lost property value because of this, where they're located. So I would just like somehow that our motion, or whoever makes the motion, takes that into account. And I don't know, like I said, I know as far as it's not specifically written that you have to be a good neighbor, but it's our humanity. And if you can't be a good neighbor, then you need to try something else. So that's just my opinion. That I just wanted to make that comment. Bob or Robert and Jim, you can go ahead with motions or whatever. It's fine with me.
Patrick, this goes to City Council as a site plan, correct?
Correct.
And then they have to peruse it. And if they approve it as a site plan, then what is the next step for the developers?
Building permit would be the next step.
And that goes to, through city council or through the plan, through the city?
Just to planning. So we do a final check on the site plan to ensure they've met all the conditions, and then the building permit, or the building department does all the detail as far as building compliance.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? I would entertain a motion of sorts then.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of the site development plan to City Council with the following 5 conditions. The 3 conditions as stated by staff, plus condition 4, that the applicant submit a rendering drawing of the south side of the building facing Main Street to City Council for their perusal. And condition 5, that the property owner will enter into discussion with the City of Cortez to prevent traffic flow from North Adams onto the private property to the south.
Well, yeah, no, well, if it prevents it
Second.
one way. What was the last part of that? What was the last part of the motion?
Okay, number 5?
Yeah, number 5.
Number 5, that the property owner will enter into discussion with the City of Cortez to prevent traffic flow from North Adams onto the private property to the south. In essence, closing off Adams and addressing the issue of the neighbors.
So does everybody understand the motion as it was seconded? Okay, any discussion? Then we'll proceed to vote.
Weiss,
Yes.
Scorts,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
McDaniel,
I'm going to...
It's already passed. You can vote no.
Now that I've got the mic on, I believe, gosh, this is hard for me. I'm not happy with the conclusion. It's better than the way it started, but I'm still voting no.
Remy,
Yes. Motion passes. When will this go to City Council?
Sounds right, yes. March 28th,
March 28th, okay.
or 20, what?
Lost my agenda. Maybe, no, let's see. Is that this right here? I guess so, yeah. Oh, it's the backside. Next item on the agenda, oh, yeah, unfinished business and use, any new business? None on the agenda. And other items, Nancy, you want to highlight the county?
Do we have one, we have one
Oh, shit, there it is.
county application that's within our one area of influence, if I could find it. It is a high-impact special use permit for property located at 12092 Highway 145. It's an existing RV resort where they are basically applying to make some minor revisions. The application notes that they neglected to include some of the camper units and cabins into the original permit. So essentially, existing RV park, they want to add 10 RV spaces and 6 cabins. Like I said, it's located in the 1 mile area of influence. It has access through an adjacent parcel to the south onto State Highway 145, so it doesn't directly impact any city streets, given that it goes to the highway. So if you have any concerns, let us know, and we'll provide those to the county.
Yeah, because wasn't this before us once before and then went to the county? But my understanding is then they maybe want to add some additional cabins is what it looks like.
Yeah, they would be adding 10 RV spaces and 6 cabins. And it is a fairly new RV park. I'm not sure when it went in, but you may have seen it at that time.
Any other commissioners that have been on here for a while remember this coming in front and they're expanding? It was just an expansion of, on the north side. I mean, it goes to the county, but yeah. And I thought they even developed some of that over the summer. Yeah.
It did sound a little bit like it was a retroactive permit to some degree.
Yeah. So basically, my understanding is they just want to add some potential more sites for hookups and then maybe some more cabins. Is that the way you're reading it? Yeah. Well, would you say those 2 items I just mentioned, once they got going, they saw that maybe they could be doing that? Is that, I mean, do you know when the county's going to hear this?
March 9th, Thursday.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments they want to add to it to go to the county? Okay. Thank you, Nancy. And then I
was
guess,
pulling it up if you had any questions there.
you've got a copy of all the permits listed. I guess I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there is a
Second.
second? Any discussion? We'll proceed to vote.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Weiss? Yes. Levy?
No. Just kidding. Yes, sorry.
Scorts?
Yes.
Ramey?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.